The gunshot echoed before Zara even realized she was the target. Glass shattered behind her head, champagne spraying across marble floors like blood. Someone had just tried to kill her in the middle of Seoul's most exclusive gala, and the only thing standing between her and a bullet was Dante Kim, the Korean Mafia king whose cold eyes had just ignited with pure, unfiltered rage. "Get down!" he roared, shoving her behind a marble column as chaos erupted around them. But this wasn't where their story began. No, it started 3 months earlier, in a place where secrets were currency and desire was dangerous. It started the night Dante Kim walked into Midnight Orchid and felt something he thought had died forever. If you're just joining us, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. This channel brings you the most intense, jaw-dropping stories you'll ever hear. And trust me, this one will have you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. Grab something cold, get comfortable, and let me take you into a world where love and danger dance together in the shadows. Dante Kim was Seoul's nightmare dressed in Tom Ford suits. At 32, he controlled the underworld with surgical precision. Illegal arms, underground gambling rings, luxury smuggling operations that stretched from Busan to Singapore. Politicians whispered his name in locked rooms. Police commissioners looked the other way when his motorcades passed. He was power personified, ruthless, and untouchable. But beneath the tailored suits and blood-soaked empire lived a secret that had hollowed him out from the inside. For nearly 10 years, his body had betrayed him in the most intimate way possible. No matter the woman, no matter the situation, nothing stirred, nothing awakened, nothing responded. He'd seen the best physicians in Seoul, Tokyo, and Switzerland. Specialists ran every test imaginable. Therapists suggested trauma, psychological blocks, repressed memories. But nothing changed. The shame followed him everywhere. A constant reminder that he was a king in every realm except the one that made him feel human. Until that Friday night, at Midnight Orchid. Dante hadn't come for entertainment. One of his lieutenants had been skimming profits, and Dante had tracked him to this underground venue where Seoul's elite came to indulge their darkest appetites. He sat in the shadows of the VIP section, ice melting in his whiskey, eyes scanning for his target. Then the lights dimmed to amber, and she appeared. Zara Okafor moved across that stage like liquid silk poured over fire. Nigerian by birth, Seoul by necessity, she danced with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Her skin glowed under the stage lights, her movements telling stories without words, stories of home, of loss, of survival, of hope that refused to die. And for the first time in nearly a decade, Dante felt it. A spark, a warmth spreading through his chest. His pulse quickened, his breath caught. His hands gripped the armrest so tightly the leather creaked beneath his fingers. He couldn't look away. The rest of the club faded into nothing. There was only her, only this woman who'd somehow reached into his chest and restarted his heart with nothing but movement and music. Then a drunk businessman stumbled forward, his filthy hand grabbing Zara's ankle mid-spin. Dante moved before conscious thought took over. In 3 seconds, he'd crossed the club. In 5, he had the man's arm twisted behind his back at an angle that made bones creak. The music stopped. Every eye in Midnight Orchid locked onto him as his voice cut through the silence like a blade. Touch her again and they'll be fishing your body out of the Han River by dawn. Security dragged the man away. Zara stormed off stage, fury radiating from her like heat from a flame. Dante followed her backstage, his footsteps deliberate, his heart hammering in a way it hadn't in years. When he caught her wrist gently in the narrow hallway, she spun around, eyes blazing with anger. "Who the hell do you think you are?" she demanded in accented Korean, yanking her arm free. "Someone who just felt something real for the first time in 10 years, he said quietly, his voice stripped of all pretense. "Because of you." She stared at him, searching his face for manipulation, for lies, for the angle. She found only raw, vulnerable truth. "I don't need saving," she said firmly, but her voice had softened slightly. "I wasn't saving you," Dante replied, stepping closer. "I was protecting what just became very important to me." Zara shook her head, confused and shaken. "You don't even know me." "Then let me learn." Over the next 3 weeks, their worlds collided in ways neither of them had planned. Dante attended every single one of her performances, always in the same corner, always watching with that same unnerving intensity. Afterward, they'd find themselves at all-night street food stalls, sharing tteokbokki and stories that should have stayed buried. She told him about Lagos, about the rain on zinc roofs, about her grandmother's jollof rice, about swimming in beaches where the Atlantic crashed against red earth. He taught her Korean phrases that made her laugh, corrected her pronunciation with surprising patience, and slowly began revealing glimpses of the boy he'd been before violence shaped him into something harder. He showered her with gifts. Not expensive things, thoughtful things. A book of Nigerian poetry he'd spent days tracking down, a necklace with a small charm shaped like the Nigerian flag, ingredients she'd mentioned missing from home, shipped overnight from specialty markets across Asia. "You're trying to buy my attention," she accused one evening, though her smile betrayed her. "No," he said softly, watching her unwrap a package of dried crayfish she'd been craving. "I'm trying to show you that someone's listening." Her best friend Chiamaka cornered her after a performance one night, voice urgent and afraid. "Zara, do you have any idea who that man is? Dante Kim doesn't date. He doesn't do relationships. He consumes people and discards them. You're playing with fire." Zara knew Chiamaka was right. She'd noticed things. How his men treated him with a fear that bordered on worship, the guns concealed beneath expensive suits, the way entire rooms shifted when he entered, conversations dying mid-sentence. But she'd also seen something else. She'd watched him feed stray cats in alleyways, had heard him speak tenderly to his elderly driver, had seen his eyes soften when children ran past them in markets. There was kindness buried beneath all that darkness, loneliness that mirrored her own. One evening, Zara surprised him by cooking a traditional Nigerian meal and bringing it to his penthouse. When the private elevator opened directly into his space, she nearly gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering Seoul skyline like a painting of fallen stars. Everything gleamed, marble, chrome, glass, but it felt cold, empty, like a mausoleum for the living. "This place has been incredibly lonely," Dante admitted, watching her take it all in. "Until this exact moment." They cooked together, him surprisingly competent with a knife as he chopped vegetables while stealing glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking. When she caught him staring, he didn't look away. "You're captivating to watch," he murmured, his voice dropping lower. He moved closer, the space between them charged with electricity that made the air feel thick. "Zara," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion he rarely allowed anyone to witness. "You've awakened something in me I genuinely believed had died years ago. You're a miracle I never thought to pray for." His hands cradled her face with shocking gentleness for a man known for breaking bones. "I will protect you from everything. I will love you with an intensity that might terrify you. But my world is built on violence and secrets and blood. I need you to truly understand that before we cross this line, because once we do, there's no going back. My enemies will see you as a weapon to use against me. Your life will never be the same." Zara's breath trembled, but she didn't pull away. "Maybe I don't want it to be the same." He kissed her then, slow, deep, full of 10 years of stored longing finally breaking free. His hands tangled in her hair, her body pressed against his, and for the first time since he could remember, Dante felt completely, overwhelmingly, alive. But happiness in Dante's world never lasted long. Just as their hearts began intertwining, his insecurities surfaced like monsters from deep water. Not doubts about Zara herself, but corrosive fear about whether she loved the man or merely the empire surrounding him. His entire life, People had wanted something from him: power, protection, money, status. Never just him. So he began testing her quietly and cruelly. Manufactured rumors circulated about him with another woman. A Japanese heiress, the whispers said. Zara heard them, saw the fabricated photographs that somehow found their way onto her phone, felt the sharp sting of betrayal. Her hands shook as she looked at the images, but she didn't run. She didn't confront him. She simply continued showing up, continued loving him, continued being present. Then he offered her money. An obscene amount, enough to change her entire family's life, watching her face carefully, searching for the greed he'd seen in countless others. She refused without hesitation, hurt flashing across her features. "I don't want your money, Dante." Still, it wasn't enough. He needed absolute certainty that her love couldn't be purchased, manipulated, or shattered by fear, because if he allowed himself to love her completely and she left, he knew it would destroy what little humanity he had left. One evening in his penthouse, as city lights sparkled below like a galaxy laid horizontal, Dante poured her water and sat across from her. She looked exhausted, smaller somehow, like someone carrying burdens too heavy for her frame. "Zara," he said gently, "tell me who you truly are. No performance, no walls, just truth." She hesitated, years of practiced secrecy making her throat tight. But something in his expression, raw, open, safe, made her walls crumble. "I'm not just a performer," she whispered. He waited, perfectly still, giving her space to continue. "I'm enrolled at Imperial Heights University, one of the most prestigious and expensive institutions in this entire region. I'm studying strategic business management and international commerce. I want my degree. I want to build something real, something lasting, something that's entirely mine." Dante's eyebrows rose slightly. Imperial Heights catered exclusively to the privileged, diplomats' children, corporate heirs, future world shapers who'd been born into wealth most people couldn't fathom. And here sat this extraordinary woman, dancing in underground clubs to finance an impossible dream. "My father abandoned our family when I turned 14, Zara continued, her voice fracturing like glass under pressure. "He left for another woman, younger, willing to give him things my mother couldn't. My mother collapsed under the weight of it: depression, anxiety, eventually physical illness. My younger brother Chidi, he was only 9. He needed school fees. Then my mother's heart condition developed. The medical expenses." Her breath caught. Everything landed on my shoulders. I was the oldest. It became my responsibility. Something twisted painfully in Dante's chest, a sharp ache he hadn't felt in years. "So I perform at Midnight Orchid," she said, tears finally spilling over. "Not because I desire it, not because I enjoy strange men watching me, but because my family's survival depends on every one I earn. Every single night I send money home. To Lagos, to my mother's treatments, to Chidi's school fees, to rent, to food, to keeping us from drowning. And I save every spare coin for tuition, for books, for the hope that maybe someday I'll graduate and lift us out of this nightmare." Dante studied her for a long moment, his throat constricted with emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel. He understood struggle. He understood shame. He'd clawed his way up from poverty and violence that would have destroyed weaker men. But her courage, her sacrifice, her refusal to break under impossible weight, it struck him with the force of a physical blow. "You were planning to leave tonight for another shift," he observed quietly. "I must," she nodded, wiping her tears quickly. "If I miss another performance, the manager will terminate me, and I can't afford that. I literally cannot afford that." Dante leaned back, a slow smile playing at his lips despite the gravity of the moment. "Zara, do you have any idea who actually owns Midnight Orchid?" Confusion flickered across her face. "Some wealthy investor I've never encountered. That's what everyone says." His smile widened. "You're looking directly at him." The room fell silent. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. What? I own Midnight Orchid, he repeated calmly. Along with 7 additional venues across East Asia, 18 logistics operations spanning 5 countries, a biotech pharmaceutical division, a steel transportation network, and one of the largest private security corporations in the region. He gestured toward the windows overlooking his city. Zara, my legitimate business empire alone is worth more than most people will see in 10 lifetimes. The illegal operations? Triple that. Her jaw dropped. She stared at him like her brain couldn't process the information. You're the owner? You own the club where I work? Precisely. He stood, moving closer until he could smell the faint scent of shea butter on her skin. Which means several things. First, you cannot possibly be terminated from my establishment. Second, you're wasting extraordinary talent and intelligence on a stage when you should be commanding something far more significant. Commanding what? She whispered, her voice barely audible. My enterprise, Kim Global Ventures. Her heart stuttered violently. You're offering me employment. I'm offering you your life back, he corrected, his voice soft but intense. A senior management position with complete salary, educational support, financial security for your entire family, including your mother's medical care and your brother's education through university. He paused, moving even closer until their breaths mingled. But it comes with one non-negotiable condition. Her pulse accelerated so fast she felt dizzy. What condition? You must work intimately with me, he murmured, his eyes locked on hers. Exceptionally closely. Every single day, every single night, every single moment I require you. No disappearing, no evasions, no hiding from me ever again. You become part of my world completely, in every way. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. You want me to work for you? I want you beside me, he said quietly, his hand coming up to trace her jawline. Within my world, within my life, within reach where I can properly protect you from everything that might try to hurt you. Because Zara, the moment I felt something for you, you became my greatest weakness. And I protect my weaknesses more fiercely than my strengths. Within 6 days, Zara became one of Kim Global Ventures' top executives. And she didn't just meet expectations, she shattered them. Her intelligence was surgical, her discipline unwavering, her natural authority undeniable. She managed teams of people twice her age, resolved crises that had stumped senior staff for weeks, orchestrated operations with precision that made grown men respect her instantly. Even the board members, old money, old families, old prejudices, whispered in genuine awe. This Nigerian woman is absolutely extraordinary. But Dante remained unsatisfied, and his dissatisfaction grew more intense with each passing day. Every time she smiled, he craved more. Every time she demonstrated compassion, he wanted her closer. Every time she proved her brilliance, he fell deeper into something that felt dangerously close to obsession. And slowly, insidiously, a new fear consumed him. Fear that she was too exceptional for his corrupt world, that her heart was too pure for anything he could offer, that eventually she'd see him clearly for the monster he truly was, and walk away, taking the only light in his darkness with her. So he made a decision that would nearly destroy them both. He would test her one final time, not to wound her, but to determine with absolute certainty if her love could withstand the full weight of what he truly was. 3 weeks later, frantic pounding shook Zara's apartment door at 2 a.m. When she stumbled to open it, one of Dante's senior lieutenants stood there, ashen-faced and trembling in a way that made her blood run cold. Zara, it's Dante. There was an ambush. He's been critically injured, multiple gunshot wounds. The doctors aren't certain he'll make it through the night. You need to come immediately. Her world exploded into pieces. She didn't pause to grab shoes, didn't think to lock her door, didn't even process the cold Seoul night air against her skin. She ran barefoot through empty streets, her lungs burning, tears streaming, the only thought pounding through her mind like a desperate prayer. Please, God, not him. Please, please, not him. At the hospital, a grim-faced surgeon approached her in the waiting room. Miss Okafor, Mr. Kim's injuries are severe. He's lost substantial blood. His kidney function is failing. If we can't find a donor match within hours, he may not survive until morning. Test me immediately, Zara said without a microsecond of hesitation, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Take whatever he needs. Take both if necessary. The surgeon's eyes widened. Miss Okafor, do you understand what you're saying? Kidney donation is major surgery with significant risks and permanent consequences. I understand perfectly, she interrupted, her voice cracking but resolute. Test me now. Please, just save him. Her hands trembled violently as she signed consent forms, tears dripping onto official documents, smudging ink. She didn't care about risks, didn't care about consequences, didn't care about anything except the man lying somewhere in this building, the man who'd shown her that love could exist even in the darkest places. Miss Okafor? A quiet voice said behind her. She turned slowly and her breath stopped completely. Dante stood there, alive, whole, uninjured, perfectly fine, watching her with eyes so tender they could break hearts and rebuild them simultaneously. What? Her voice failed. What is this? He crossed the room, moving toward her like she was the only thing tethering him to earth. When he reached her, his hands came up to cradle her face, his thumbs wiping away tears that wouldn't stop falling. You were prepared to sacrifice part of yourself for me, he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. Without hesitation, without conditions. You didn't choose my wealth, you didn't choose my power, you chose me, just me, the broken man beneath everything else. Zara's breath came in ragged gasps as understanding crashed over her. This was a test? You made me think you were dying to test me. I needed absolute certainty, he admitted, his voice raw and unguarded. That you loved the man beneath the monster. And Zara, you just proved something I never thought possible, that someone could love me without wanting anything except me. She should have been furious. She should have slapped him, screamed at him, walked away. But instead, she grabbed his shirt and pulled him close, pressing her forehead against his chest, where his very much alive heart thundered like drums. I've loved you long before I had the courage to admit it, she whispered. Don't ever do that to me again. Never, he promised, wrapping his arms around her like she was the most precious thing in his entire world. Never again. That night, Seoul's most feared man held the only woman who'd ever reached the parts of him he'd thought were dead, forever. And for the first time in his violent life, Dante Kim felt peace. But peace in his world was always temporary. 2 weeks later, they attended a charity gala at the Schiller Hotel, one of those glittering events where Seoul's elite gathered to pretend they cared about causes while networking and measuring status. Zara wore a stunning emerald dress that made her skin glow. Dante couldn't stop touching her hand, her waist, the small of her back, like he needed constant confirmation she was real. They were standing near the champagne fountain, laughing at something ridiculous, when Dante's head of security appeared, his face carved from stone. Sir, we have a situation. Multiple unknown hostiles just entered the building. This might be... The gunshot cut him off. Glass exploded behind Zara's head, champagne spraying like blood across marble. Dante moved on pure instinct, shoving her behind a column as chaos erupted. Screams running, more gunshots. Stay down! He roared, his gun appearing from nowhere, his entire demeanor shifting from lover to lethal in a heartbeat. But as he returned fire, protecting her with his own body, one thought burned through his mind with crystal clarity. This wasn't random. This was targeted. Someone knew exactly who she was and exactly what she meant to him. And in the shadows across the ballroom, partially hidden by fleeing guests, Someone watched with cold satisfaction. A woman. Beautiful. Elegant. Her eyes fixed on Zara with hatred so pure it could poison water. Dante saw her for just a moment before she disappeared into the chaos, and in that moment recognition hit him like a bullet to the chest. His past had finally caught up with them. And the woman who'd just tried to kill Zara was someone he'd hoped never to see again. Someone who knew all his secrets, all his weaknesses, and exactly how to destroy everything he loved. The real war had just begun. And neither Dante nor Zara had any idea how deep the betrayal ran, or how much blood would spill before it ended. If you want to know what happens next, if you need to find out who that woman is and why she wants Zara dead, make sure you're subscribed to this channel with notifications turned on, because part 2 of this story drops soon. And trust me, you will not want to miss what's coming. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you think is about to happen, and I'll see you in the next one. This story is about to get darker, more dangerous, and more intense than anything you've seen before.